What's going on, everybody? My name is Aiden and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be discussing another, part of Nikola Vucevic's conversation. Obviously, in the last couple of videos, we talked about what he thought about the Bulls' demise and how Lonzo Ball was a big factor in that. Today, we are kind of going to move on from that situation and talk about another situation that Nikola Vucevic brought up, and that is his retirement plans, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking retirement when it comes to Nikola Vucevic. What does it mean for the Chicago Bulls? When is he going to retire? And of course, does that mean that maybe, for example, trade situations become a little bit lessened based on these statements? We'll talk a little bit about it and more in this video. But before we get any further, if you like the video and you want to see more from me, drop a like, drop a follow, and or subscribe if you are new. And let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls and obviously Nikola Vucevic's retirement plans. Obviously, are you sad to see him go? I mean, it's still not now. We still got a long time before he actually does hang up the boots in many ways. But ultimately, what are your thoughts on what he had to say in relation to that? So, I feel like it is important to kind of mention what he said. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, when asked upon his retirement, he obviously mentioned his 2 years with the Chicago Bulls that he has, but he mentioned that he would like to play 2 further years after this upcoming contract and play until 2028. Now, he didn't specify whether or not he would play beyond those years, but he believes he would be at the highest level of his career up until 2028. So after 2028, we don't necessarily know if he would come back to the NBA or if he'll come back to basketball or whether or not he's going to hang it up right then and there. But basically, there's a timeline on Nikola Vucevic's retirement. We knew it was going to come eventually. Again, he's getting up there in age. I think even he is aware he can't play forever. But it looks like 4 years is essentially the time frame that we'll be looking at when it comes to Nikola Vucevic's retirement. Well, a couple of things we need to mention. Obviously, playing at the highest level is the key one I want to mention here. Because unfortunately, Nikola Vucevic, whether we like it or not, maybe it's the environment, maybe it's because he's the third or second option, but he has regressed from his Orlando days to his Chicago Bulls days. I think he's regressed as a scorer. I think he's better as a facilitator with this Bulls team, in all honesty. Maybe because there's more responsibility on that. But at the end of the day, I feel like in almost every other area, he just hasn't been what he was on the Orlando Magic. Even defensively, I would make that argument. And some you can explain, some areas you can't explain. Regardless, I personally think by the time 2028 comes around, 4 years, from now, I can't see Vucevic playing at the highest level in 4 years' time. Now, of course, his game isn't specified or mentioned based on athleticism or anything like that. So it's not like, oh no, if he gets a little bit slower, that's it for him. Or, oh no, he can't dunk anymore, that's it for him. Because his game's not really prevalent on that. But regardless, I still feel like the NBA's moving in one way and Nikola Vucevic is heading in another way. The more centers that we see that are more hybrid type of centers coming into the league, I think guys like Nikola Vucevic are slowly going to start falling away. But it's not that time yet for Nikola Vucevic. I still believe he could have a big impact on the Bulls in this upcoming season, and I think he could play very well for the Bulls next season if he is to stay here. But in 4 years' time, I genuinely think there's more conversations of regression, more conversations of the league adapting. I can give you the example of guys like Carmelo Anthony or guys like Andre Drummond that, are dominant guys, have always been dominant guys in their position, but the game, changed and adapted, and those players didn't really adapt to the times. With Vucevic, I think he's more of a modern NBA player than some other centers in the league, but we're getting more hybrid centers that could dribble, that could be a point center, that could do everything that a point guard can do, but as a 7'4" athlete. And I just feel like when that time comes, 4 or 5 years down the line, there are going to be a lot of centers that are going to be out of a job, in my humble opinion. And I think Vucevic will be part of that as well, because he is getting up there in age. But moving on to the actual retirement quote itself. Well, how does this really affect the Chicago Bulls? In my opinion, there's 2 ways you can look at this. One, you might think that his trade value has decreased because he's starting to talk about retirement. That was my initial thoughts. Why is he talking about retirement right now? The way that he talks about retirement, it means that there's not going to be many teams coming in for him anytime soon because they know he plans to retire very, very soon. Or at least that's the aim. 4 years down the line, Vucevic could be out of the league. if he is still playing at a very decent level, that could be a problem for many teams. And that is something that could potentially lower his trade value. But you might look at it on the other side of the coin and say, look, teams aren't stupid. NBA teams, they have professional, highly trained, high IQ individuals working for their organizations, and surely 30 out of 30 teams would know if you're bringing in Nikola Vucevic, you're not bringing him in for a 5-year contract. You're not bringing him in to be a long-term guy for you. And in that way, talking about retirement kind of means nothing, because at the end of the day, teams are aware if you bring in Nikola Vucevic, you're bringing him in for the short-term situation. You're bringing him in for, it could be for a specific reason. Maybe it's to help younger guys. Maybe it is to try and compete straight away. Regardless, it's a short-term asset. It's a short-term deal. It's a short-term situation for any team that wants to take on the contract of Nikola Vucevic. So whether it is the Bulls that keeps him around, whether it is free agency in which he leaves, whatever decision comes, whatever ends up happening, I really feel like it won't mean much for the Chicago Bulls right now. I don't think his trade value's gone down since he started talking about retirement. I don't necessarily think teams are looking at it and say, oh my goodness, 4 years? We're only going to get him for 4 years? No, that's it. I can't. We can't go and get Nikola Vucevic now. I don't think anyone's saying that. I feel like this doesn't make much of an impact, but I still think Bulls fans need to talk about this because you just never know what's right around the corner. Vucevic is talking about retirement, and it goes to show that if he does stay for the Bulls, maybe even beyond the 2 years, it's a situation we might have to deal with. It could potentially impact the type of trades that we may get, but in terms of trade value, in terms of, I guess, trade partners, maybe that's the better term for it. I can't see anything being impacted whatsoever. But it does, it brings interesting conversations. But I genuinely feel like, again, in 4 years' time, the NBA is going to look completely different to how it looks now. So many ridiculously good centers that have multiple facets to their game, could be point centers in the league, are coming into the NBA. It's literally a freak of nature, from guys like Giannis, who could be a center at this day and age, let's be honest. I know he doesn't play there, but he could play there if he wanted to guys like Jokic, to Victor Wembanyama, to all these other guys that you're probably going to see from the draft enter the NBA and be those types of players. Even Chet Holmgren, just all of them. They bring different vibes to the center position. They bring different playing styles. That's where I see the game heading. So 4 years down the line, I do believe Vucevic will not be, I guess, the player that he is now, of course. But I also believe he's the type of centers that, I guess, play in the NBA now, the type of centers that Vucevic is, I feel like will become a little bit less prevalent in the NBA. And who knows what's going to happen to the old school centers? I mean, who knows what's going to happen to Andre Drummond or any other center that has that mindset of just rebounding and dunking the ball in 4 years' time, man? Who knows? The NBA is turning to a very weird direction, and I guess we're all on board for the ride. But what do you guys think about Nikola Vucevic and his retirement plans? I'll be sad to see Vucevic retire. I want him to retire happily, of course. I don't want to see him retire for reasons that are not his own, for example. You guys know what I mean by that. I want to see him have a good career. I want to, if he goes to another team, like, you know, if he goes to Memphis or something, or he goes back to Orlando, I don't know what his future holds, but I hope he has a successful time there. Vucevic is a very likable guy. I know people hate him because of the way that he plays, but if you get to know Nikola Vucevic, the character, the human, you know, just by watching some videos about him, just by watching his interviews, watching what he says, he's a very honest guy, very likable guy. I wish him nothing but the best, man. And if it's for the Bulls, okay. If it's for any other team, I think that's the preferred outcome. We'll have to see how it goes. Thank you for watching. Drop a like and a follow, and or subscribe if you are new. I will see you in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay tuned for more. Take care, and peace.